This is Laura Ingraham. If you're unfamiliar, she's a Fox News host, absolutely unglued from reality in every way. She decided to do this episode about the new normal and how things aren't normal, even though Democrats apparently promised they would be normal. I don't remember that, but okay. Anyway, it's just basically a constant stream of propaganda. So I wanted to watch it and point out all the propaganda techniques. This is not part one. If you haven't seen the other, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. If you want to see which part this is, it should be in the title. By the by, we're going to be playing Breath of the Wild 2. I'm just kind of running around grinding, so I won't spoil anything. I promise. All right, so who do we got coming on now? Let's see.
If the country really wants to get back to a healthy normal, we must refuse to allow the left to mainstream decline, deviancy, and corruption. And that's the angle. Joining us now is Elbridge Colby, former Trump Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, and Victor Davis Hanson, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution. Great to see you both tonight. Victor, now...
What the hell is the Hoover Institution? Why should I care? This is Trump's Secretary of Defense? Is that what she said? God, I don't know anything about this guy except for the fact that he is a complete scumbag. If I know nothing else, that is the only thing that I know about him.
Now, 2016 was a rejection of the globalism and the elite's plan for America, but what will 2024 be a rejection of?
Well, what was 2020 a rejection of?
Well, 2024 is going to be a rejection of the Biden administration, foreign policy, border, crime, energy.
And who is this guy again? Hoover Institution Senior Fellow? What the hell is a Senior Fellow? Let me just look this up. I want to know what a Senior Fellow is. A Senior Fellow. A Fellow is a... Wait. Okay, that's just defining fellow for me. Okay, a senior fellow is the most experienced or most successful of an elite group of people who work together as peers in an academic setting. Oh, so it's an elite is what it is. I mean, it's right in the definition. The word is in the definition. A senior fellow is an elite. Okay. Your mom's senior fellow. That was a good one. Don't think I didn't caught that. That was a good one. Okay, let's see. So he's a senior fellow, Hoover Institution. What the hell is a Hoover Institution? Let's see what global ranking let's check rankings. It was ranked 22nd on the top think tanks. Oh, Hoover Institution is a Republican think tank. So this guy is just a Republican think tank thinker, I guess. Think tank thinker. Okay. That's what that is. Because this is framed as though this dude is some kind of professor at an esteemed institution, like a research professor who discovers, novel viruses and vaccines for them and shit. That's how it was presented to me. No, he's just a propagandist. That's his job, propagandist. Really. His title, Hoover Institution Senior Fellow, could easily be changed to propagandist, and we would have lost no information. We would have honestly gained information. Okay, let's hear the propagandist tell us about, what was the question?
Now, 2016 was a rejection of the globalism and the elite's plan for America, but...
Globalists! Sheeple!
What will 2024 be a rejection of?
Well, 2024 is going to be a rejection of the Biden administration, foreign policy, border, crime, energy, the economy. And what's the common denominator to this is on foreign policy, it's...
Wait, border, crime, economy? What? Did he just say all of those three things together? What did that mean? I don't understand. Is crime worse right now than it was under Donald Trump? Is the border worse right now than it was under Donald Trump? What the hell are you talking about right now, man? I'm like so lost by what this guy is saying. He's just using propaganda to attack Biden, plain and simple, right? I mean, he is chief propagandist.
Concession on Iran, on China, on all.
It's Iran. It's pronounced Iran, first of all. And second of all, concessions? You think we've given concessions to Iran? What are you talking about?
All of our adversaries and neutrals, and then at home it's print money and then call it Bidenomics a success. So it's been a total failure. One really quick thing.
Complete misrepresentation of what's happening right now.
Laura, all these leaks about Joe Biden, about his character, about his corruption, and about his debility is all designed that he does not run again, but they're not invoking the 25th Amendment. They're not talking about removing.
If you don't know, the 25th Amendment is, so the president has a cabinet. I mean, I'm assuming you're starting from zero at this, so I'll just give you a little bit of information. President has a cabinet, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of National Defense, so on and so forth. And that's the president's cabinet, and they basically run all of these different agencies and stuff for him, right? And they take their orders directly from him. Well, if they choose, according to the 25th Amendment, the secretaries or the president's cabinet can all get together and decide the president is unfit for office. He cannot serve any longer and needs to be taken out. It's a what would you call it? Like an alternative to impeachment. In my opinion, and in the opinion of a great many people, Ronald Reagan should have had the 25th Amendment pulled on him near the end, because he's very obviously mentally ill. Ronald Reagan was. He was clearly dealing with Alzheimer's disease by the end, and he in fact died shortly after exiting the presidency. They should have used the 25th Amendment on him. Not because he was a bad guy, he was, but that's not why. Not for political reasons, not for any of that stuff. Just because he was unwell, That's really the only reason why the 25th Amendment should ever be used, in my opinion, is if a president is very obviously unwell and needs to be removed, and his cabinet can clearly see that. Now, did they do that? Did they remove Reagan? Of course not. They're never going to use the 25th Amendment to remove somebody, because that, it would be such a massive step. It would be like a game-changing step for people. It'd be a really, really big deal. So, anyway, that's what he's talking about.
All these leaks about Joe Biden, about his character, about his corruption.
Dude, what the hell are you talking about? Leaks about Biden's character and corruption? I haven't heard any of this stuff. Joe Biden is a fine, upstanding person. He's not corrupt.
And about his debility is all designed that he does not run again, but they're not invoking the 25th Amendment. They're not.
Well, that's because there's nothing to evoke the 25th Amendment over. He's fine. What are you talking about?
Talking about removing him, which they did with Trump, because that would give us Kamala Harris. So the narrative now is he can't run again, but he's got to finish his first term so that Kamala fades into the 2024 primary.
Okay, her name is pronounced Kamala, first of all. And second, Trump should have had the 25th Amendment evoked. And I understand we would have gotten Pence. I'm okay with that. They should have removed Trump by the 25th Amendment, because he had completely lost his marbles over the things that he was doing, the things that he was saying, telling people to do, ordering people to break the law. It was insane, especially at the end. The fact that the cabinet did not remove Trump through the 25th Amendment blows me away, honestly.
For other candidates.
Now, Elbridge, speaking of Ukraine, as we were talking about earlier in the angle, I want to get your thoughts on the Biden administration's shifting feelings on cluster bombs. Watch this.
There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians.
If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime.
Yeah, so if you don't know, cluster bombs are bombs that basically they're indiscriminate. Like you get a cluster bomb, you drop it on an area, and it's indiscriminate. It can hurt like tons and tons and tons of people, including civilians. And for that reason, I believe that that's illegal. I believe it's a war crime to use cluster bombs because they're so indiscriminate and they can hurt civilians. Civilians are not considered legitimate targets in wartime, ever, no matter what. I think, to my knowledge, Putin has killed, how many people? Hang on. Okay, it looks like over 9,000. I know that's a meme, but this is real. Over 9,000 civilians have died in Ukraine since the start of the war, from my understanding. They are not legitimate targets, and that is a deeply disturbing fact to know. You want an even more disturbing fact? Low estimates say 500,000 civilians died in Iraq when the United States invaded Iraq. 500,000. High estimates are 1 million. Civilians! Not military people, not contractors. I'm talking civilians. I'm just saying. That's really whacked out. Okay? Anyways, Putin is actually a war criminal, in my opinion. So is George Bush, but we'll talk about Putin for the moment. Putin is disgusting and terrible and deserves to face judgment at The Hague. But that's neither here nor there.
I want to get your thoughts on the Biden administration's shifting feelings on cluster bombs. Watch this.
There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians.
If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime.
The administration is going to provide cluster munitions to the Ukrainians. What made you change your mind and decide to give them these weapons?
The Ukrainians are running out of ammunition. And
if you notice, they're doing a bunch of jumps. They've clipped a whole bunch of stuff together. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Step back, just watch this one more time, okay? And watch all of the fades to white. And then, the next thing. Watch. Okay, here's their little clip that they put together. Watch this.
There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians.
If that were...
Clip. This is a jump. Let me show you how this is done. I have Final Cut Pro open right here, right? I was editing a video earlier. I need to do more editing later, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. Let me show you something, okay? Let's just pick out one little segment here. This is from one of my Jim Baker videos. Wait, don't Christians say that? Isn't that what they tell people? It's called transubstantiation, isn't it? The conversion of the substance of the Eucharistic elements, which is the bread and the wine. Okay, so that's just one little section. I don't put any transitions in when I do my stuff. I just do the jump cuts. But I can, if I choose, I can take a little fade to color transition and just drop it right here, like so. And I can change the color to white, like so. And I can change it to 15 seconds, make it really short. Or 15 frames, I'm sorry. Now watch this. Which is the bread and the wine. Into the body and blood of Christ at consecration. So basically, that's exactly what these people did. Except they used the fade to color and they changed it to white. And they sped it up really, really quick, so you weren't even paying attention. You didn't even... Sorry, let me turn the sound off. You didn't even notice that these transitions were in here, probably. You were just watching like it was a normal news report, because it looks like a normal news report, right? Fox News looks like it's normal. But they spliced like 16 different clips together. We have one of Jen Psaki. We have one of, who else was it? We have one of Biden. We have one of Fareed Zakaria. Whole bunch of people saying all kinds of different unrelated things. Did they literally just like take people saying certain words and then just kind of cut them together to make it sound like they were implying something? This is insane how they deceptively edit this stuff. Hang on, let me look this up. Okay, apparently cluster bombs are not a problem. Cluster bombs are okay. They're not a war crime to use. They're not illegal. They're not against the Geneva Convention. Apparently, it's who you're targeting or the areas that you're targeting. Right? So cluster bombs, when you drop them, they explode like all at once in various different areas. And if there's a military platoon moving through the streets of a city, as happens a lot in Ukraine because they're fighting on their home turf. They're moving through the streets toward the battle zone. Russia comes in with a plane, drops a cluster bomb, and not only do they hit the soldiers with the cluster bomb, but since it's a cluster bomb, they hit everybody that's in the apartments nearby too, and everybody in their storefronts and everything. So cluster bomb use by Putin in that context was a war crime because he was hurting people. Cluster bomb use by Putin in that context was a war crime because he was hurting civilians. Cluster bomb use in general in military context apparently is okay as long as, the civilians are not at risk of being hurt, basically. So the Biden administration did not change their position on whether or not cluster bombs are bad. Cluster bombs are fair use in war, always have been fair use in war, according to the Biden administration and every other administration. They're just not fair use in civilian areas. That's all. That's it. So, yeah, it's not like a flip-flop. They're making it out like this is a flip-flop by the Biden administration. It's not. Russia just can't carpet bomb, basically, civilian areas with cluster bombs. That's the problem. So, anyway, let's keep listening here. And again, all of the deceptive editing in that cannot be overlooked. They literally just, spliced 16 clips together all at once of different people saying different things and made it seem like its own distinct single message that was being delivered. It's ridiculous how they do that.
I want to get your thoughts on the Biden administration shifting feelings on cluster bombs. Watch this.
No shifting feelings. It's wrong to use cluster bombs in civilian areas. It's okay, or it's not against the Geneva Convention to use cluster bombs if civilians are not put in danger.
There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians.
If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime.
The administration is going to provide cluster munitions to the Ukrainians. What made you change your mind and decide to give them these weapons?
The Ukrainian.
Okay, he didn't change his mind on giving them these weapons. I mean, again, cluster bombs are fine. Well, I mean, people are still dying, and I still don't like war at all. I'm a pacifist, about as pacifistic as it gets. So I don't believe in war under almost any circumstance, but, we have a war here, so it is what it is. Cluster bombs are not against the Geneva Convention by any stretch of the imagination, as long as they're not being used in civilian centers.
If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime.
The administration is going to provide cluster munitions to the Ukrainians. What made you change your mind and decide to give them these weapons?
The Ukrainians are running out of ammunition, and we're low on it. And so
Wait, is that even did those words belong together? They spliced out Biden saying the Ukrainians are running out of ammunition, and they spliced in another little segment of him saying, and we're low on it. Was he even talking about the U.S. being low on ammo? I doubt it. I cannot imagine the U.S. being low on ammo, in all seriousness. This is about as deceptively edited as you can possibly get. This is bad.
I finally took the recommendation of the Defense Department.
Albridge, I'm sure they didn't care for him actually saying the United States of America is low on munitions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that he even said that. Maybe. And I'm being told by Robert Adset in the chat that apparently Biden did change his mind. At first, he was opposed to the use of cluster bombs, even in military settings when civilians are not in danger. And Biden changed his mind to being okay with their use in military settings, apparently. Okay. I mean, if that's the case, then my mistake. I just haven't looked into it enough. Either way, this isn't like this big revelation that they're trying to make out, and they're completely twisting this around and bastardizing what all of this means and what's being said here and everything.
Well, I think the admission by the president on 155 millimeter rounds, which are actually very standard and relatively simple weapons.
Wait. What admission by the president on 150 something or other rounds? What? What's he talking about? What admission? Did I miss something?
The United States of America is low on munitions.
Yeah.
Plus mainstreaming, normalizing cluster bombs now.
Right. Well, I think the admission by the president on 155 millimeter rounds, which are actually very standard and relatively simple weapons that we're depleting them, is a huge admission. And I'm not sure why they're taking it.
Okay, I don't know that he even admitted to that. I didn't hear anything about that. What the hell are these people talking about right now?
Any kind of victory lap, because the war in Ukraine, unfortunately, looks like it's going to be protracted. Unfortunately, the counteroffensive...
They're not winning the war. Is that correct? Where's the counteroffensive?
Right. I mean, they're probing. We hope they do well, of course, but so far it seems to be pretty modest. Now, there could be a breakthrough, but I don't think that's going to decisively end the war anytime soon, if at all.
Here's the thing about the Ukraine war right now, as far as we can tell at this moment. The Ukraine war, Russia believed that they were just going to walk in and take over. If they could kill Zelensky, if they could basically cut off the head, if they could take out all of the leadership, then they could just waltz in and be done with the whole thing. And that's why they started a special operation in Kyiv, I think, is where it started, right? And the hope and expectation was that Russia was going to be done by the end of the night, and they were going to control Ukraine originally. Now, it didn't work out that way, so they had to go to Plan B. Zelensky stayed in Ukraine, which is one of the most intelligent and, ballsy things that I can imagine. Holy shit, dude. Can you imagine? God, it's just crazy. It's like Winston Churchill staying in London during the bombings in World War II. It's crazy. Anyway, so very respectable of Zelensky to stay put, and it also probably saved Ukraine for him to have stayed exactly where he was and continue to fight. Now, Russia, when they realized they weren't going to be able to cut off the head, i.e. they were not going to be able to take out the leadership and replace it with their own puppets, they invaded with their full force, with all of their troops, from the Belarus side and from the Russian side. Okay, so this is Ukraine. Hold on, let's see here. Wow, are all these names really in Cyrillic? That's not very helpful. Well, luckily, I think I know where things are. Kharkiv. Okay, yeah. So this is Ukraine. This whole border right here, this is Ukraine. You can see me tracing it with my mouse, right? And this little spot right here, I believe this is Crimea. This spot right here is Crimea, to my knowledge. Somebody with more knowledge can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. And then you go up and, over here is the western part of Ukraine. Now, when the special operation by Russia started, everybody who was important, all of the U.S. diplomats, the Chinese diplomats and everything, they all evacuated to the western part of Ukraine, which is Lviv right here. They evacuated to right here because Kyiv is the capital, and this is where Zelensky is, and this is where Russia was trying to hit. This is where all of the important people are, and again, if they can take out the head, they can replace it with puppets. Belarus is right here. Now, Belarus is basically a puppet state of Russia. Russia is right here. So Ukraine shares most of its border with Belarus and Russia, right? In 2014, Russia came in and took Crimea, this section, what I believe to be this section right here, just took it. Did this military operation the exact same way and simply took Crimea. It was bad, really bad. Not for nothing, but Obama was, he put sanctions on Russia and everything. Did the right thing, tried to punish Russia for taking part of Ukraine like that. Russia didn't say a word about it. It was like, well, that's kind of weird. Russia suddenly doesn't give a shit if we put sanctions on them. Super strange. Wonder why that would be. Turns out, something that it really didn't even take that long to find out. Michael Flynn was in communication with Russia the entire time and basically told Putin through a series of cutouts, don't worry about don't worry about the sanctions. I'm Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense right now, or I will be soon, or whatever. If Trump wins, I'll be his Secretary of Defense or whatever. And I've talked to him, and he said once he wins, he's going to lift those sanctions and just let you have Crimea. This is all this is all on record. We're all 100% positive about all of this, every last bit. This is exactly what happened. As a matter of fact, that is what one might refer to as undermining the president. Treason, maybe. You could even call that treason. I would call it treason, in spirit, if not in fact. And Michael Flynn went to prison for doing that. Michael Flynn undermined the authority of the president in favor of Russia, to help Russia. And Russia put their best efforts into making sure that Trump won because they knew that Michael Flynn had told them, if Trump wins the election, they will lift the sanctions, basically, is what was said. So they did everything they could to make sure Trump won, and they were successful. And that's exactly what happened. So anyways, back to what I was saying. Crimea currently is considered part of Russia at this immediate moment, I believe, but it's supposed to be part of Ukraine. After the military operation in Kyiv failed, where they were trying to cut off the head, if you will, kill all of the leadership and replace them with puppets. When that failed, Russia took all of the troops that were lined up along the Belarusian border and the Russian border, about 100,000 of them somewhere in that vicinity, and they flooded in. Now, they were told, the troops were, that they would be lauded as heroes, that people wanted them. The Ukrainians wanted to be freed of the Ukrainian scourge of this loser Zelensky. He's terrible. Nobody likes him. But they found out pretty quickly when they got there that nobody wanted them there. It was an extremely unfriendly terrain. They were teaching people in Ukraine to make Molotov cocktails on the radio. Which, by the way, is not that difficult. It's just styrofoam, gasoline, and a bottle. And usually a rag and a match. But if you want to get more specific, they were probably, you can mix things with it, rubber from tires and stuff to make it worse or better or whatever. So they were telling people how to make Molotov cocktails on the radio. Now, the people in Ukraine have a choice. Either they legitimately want Russia in, and they're just going to allow the Russians to come in. Or the Russians are going to walk in and find themselves pelted with Molotov cocktails. Basically, little bombs, little homemade bombs, pretty much is what this is, right? When the Russian forces, all 100,000 of them, flooded in from the Belarusian border and the Russian border all over toward Kyiv, they found out the hard way. Nobody wanted them there. Ukraine wants to be Ukraine. They don't want to be Russia. They don't want to live under Putin. And they will die rather than live under Putin. They loved Zelensky. He really solidified himself as the leader of Ukraine by staying there, by refusing to leave, by taking videos of himself in Kyiv, despite the fact that, there were bombs going off, cruise missiles, air raid sirens, and everything in the background. He really proved himself to the Ukrainian people, and he is about as loved as it gets as a leader now. So anyway, back to the course of the war. After Russia realized that their troops are coming in through Belarus, over the Belarusian border and the Russian border, and they're being met with hatred and scorn and, having Molotov cocktails thrown at them and stuff, they pulled back. Putin ordered the troops to move back into... Dude, did I just... Okay, no. I thought I destroyed my most powerful weapon here. Why is this... Oh, I didn't realize this. Apparently it has destructive power before it breaks. Okay, anyways. So after Putin finds out that, nobody wants him there and that it's not going to be as easy as he thought it was to take over Ukraine, he ordered all of his troops that were coming in through the Belarus border back. And they came through Belarus, came through Russia, if you're following my mouse here, and they piled up right here. And they came over the Kharkiv border. And they came over the border at Kharkiv, which is a Ukrainian city. Donetsk, which is kind of like a county or like a province, a state, if you will. It's called an oblast there, but it's kind of like a state, if you will. So the Donetsk and the Luhansk, that's where they came in. Kharkiv, Luhansk, Donetsk, and Mariupol. And of course, they already had this area, which I believe is Crimea. So, Russia basically knew that they were spread entirely too thin. If they had successfully taken Zelensky and the other leaders out and replaced them with puppet dictators, this wouldn't have been a problem. They would have succeeded. But they failed that. If the people in Ukraine had been friendlier to the Russian force and not thrown Molotov cocktails out their window, they might have been able to do it. But nobody wanted them there. Nobody. So they found out the hard way that they were unwelcome invaders, and Putin had to pull all of his troops back and concentrate them into one specific section, one specific area. And he is successfully, Putin right now, he is successfully, as of this moment, holding the Luhansk region, the Donetsk region, and Mariupol. I believe they had to give up on Kharkiv because it was just spreading the army too thin. That's the state of the war right now. And that's kind of, how things played out. I just want to give a little bit of an explanation for, how all of this worked. Now, in all of this stuff that was going on at the time, all of the hubbub, if you will, all of the chaos, pictures being released, certain information being rapidly declassified by the U.S. government to try to prevent Russia from moving forward with some of their plans and things like that. Like at one point, Russia planned to stage a false flag attack where they're going to pretend that there was a bombing in Moscow, or that they found a bomb in Moscow. And hell, maybe they'll just set off a bomb in Moscow. Like, why not? You know, that like Putin doesn't give a shit about his people. What he gives a shit about is winning. So anyways, things are being rapidly declassified in that moment. You know, information that we may not have had otherwise. And a picture released of the Belarusian president, Lukashenko, who had just won his election. Conveniently, he's won every election since like the 1990s by like between 75 and 85%, and within that range exactly. It's very obviously rigged. Anyways, he's a puppet of Putin, and this picture of him released by accident of him pointing at a map. I followed, by the way, the reason I'm giving you guys this background is because, you know, Laura Ingraham is talking about Ukraine, so I feel like it's important to give a little bit of background for people watching 5 years in the future. Plus, I studied this war, this Ukraine war, probably closer than, just about as close as a civilian can follow it. So anyways, this is Lukashenko pointing at a map, and basically what this map is depicting is the battle strategy, the original battle strategy that failed. The plan, according to this map, if it's to be believed, was for Russia to go through Kyiv. Hang on. Sorry. The plan was for Russia to come through Belarus and the Russian border over through Kyiv, pass through Kyiv, and go straight to Moldova and take Moldova over also. Moldova is its own separate country that's next to Ukraine. Moldova was on this picture as one of their targets. Holy shit. How did this picture get out? I don't even remember. I think it was an accident. He accidentally posted this picture to Twitter or something. It was so ridiculous and stupid. Anyway. Yeah, the whole war was a mess. So right now, where we stand at this moment in time, as I'm talking, Russia thought they were going to rush the border and just take everything, and it failed miserably. So they had to concentrate their forces in Luhansk, Donetsk, and Mariupol. And that's what they've done. And Crimea, of course. Keep Crimea. And they're holding the line there. But, you know, there's probably going to be fighting there for a long time to come. That being said, it is valuable to the United States to have one of our historic adversaries occupied in a conflict. It's a good thing to have them, like, focused on something else other than building an army and threatening to attack us 24/7. They can't, like, Russia can't possibly, they can talk all the shit that they want, but their threats are as empty as it gets after seeing what they did in Ukraine. They couldn't even take Ukraine. They think they can take America? They think they could take, like, literally anybody? They're not a world superpower. They are weaker than Ukraine, or at least as powerful as Ukraine. Give me a break. It's a joke. Russia is a joke as a military. So anyways, that was a history of Russia. I was talking about it because Laura Ingraham was talking about Russia. And they had Trump's ex-defense secretary on to talk about all this. So that's why I went through, like, the whole history of the war up to this moment. All right, now let's just step back a little bit. Let's listen to what the defense secretary here of Laura Ingraham has to say about the Ukraine war now that we have a little bit of that history.
55 millimeter rounds, which are actually very standard and relatively simple weapons, that we're depleting them, is a huge admission. And I'm not sure why they're taking any kind of victory lap, because the war in Ukraine, unfortunately, looks like it's going to be protracted. Unfortunately, the counteroffensive...
They're not winning the war. Is that correct? Where's the counteroffensive?
Right.
Right, that was the question. They're not winning the war. Like, Ukraine is not winning the war. No, they definitely got a few blows against Russia, absolutely. But with this kind of war, this could go on for 10, 15, 20 years. Which, again, it's good, actually. It's bad because we're losing people. People are dying right now. I'm disappointed that there's a war at all. But for national security of the United States, it's good. Because Russia is occupied. They're busy. They're not paying attention to what's happening elsewhere. Or their attention is divided at the very least. We'll put it that way. So Russia's attention is divided and less focused on the United States. And we can see exactly how weak they are, which we've had an opportunity to see. So it's a good thing that... war is a bad thing, but as far as war goes, it couldn't be a better situation for the United States national security. We'll put it that way.
They're probing. We hope they do well, of course, but so far it seems to be pretty modest. Now, there could be a breakthrough, but I don't think that's going to decisively end the war anytime soon, if at all. And at the same time, they're going...
Yeah, I don't think the war is going to end anytime soon. We could spend 10 years waiting for this. But again, it's keeping Russia occupied and out of everybody else's hair, and it's hurting one of our historic adversaries and helping one of our historic allies. So, yeah.
Going to China, and they're sufficiently provocative to be offensive to the Chinese, who believe they're trying to strangle them, but not doing a good enough job about it to actually hold the Chinese back. At the same time, Iran is moving to become something close to a threshold state. So why are they taking victory? I think a lot of it is just the optics of going to a NATO summit. It's basically the symbolism, but actually we're on a really bad trajectory as far as...
Dude, I have no idea what this guy's talking about right now. Again, I just explained the Ukraine war in about as much detail as a civilian can have. I know this war backward and forward. I know and I probably follow politics closer than just about anybody else, too. Almost anybody. It's part of my job. I sit here 16 hours a week just conveying this information to you. And another 20 hours a week editing that so that I can release it, and another 20 hours or 25 hours a week studying this, watching this stuff, reading these breakdowns and these summaries and all this other stuff. I follow this shit close, and I have no clue what this guy is talking about right now. I think he's just talking out his ass.
Job about it to actually hold the Chinese back.
Hey, let's just step back, listen to what he says again, and make note of the fact that what he's saying makes no sense at all.
Be a breakthrough, but I don't think that's going to decisively end the war anytime soon, if at all. And at the same time, they're going to China, and they're sufficiently provocative to be offensive to the Chinese.
Who is going to China? Who is sufficiently provocative to China? What is he talking about?
Who believe they're trying to strangle them, but not doing a good enough job.
Wait, who is them? And who's being strangled? Is it China being strangled? What are you talking about? This guy is making no sense, and he probably realizes that, and he's trying to sound like he knows what he's talking about when he simply absolutely does not have any idea what he's talking about. That's my guess. Like I said, I follow this shit as closely as a civilian can follow it. This guy's making no sense at all. He's completely full of shit.
About it to actually hold the Chinese back. At the same time, Iran is moving to become something close to a threshold state. So why are they taking victory? I think a lot of it is just the optics of going to a NATO summit. It's basically the symbolism.
And what the hell is that about Iran?
Strangle them, but not doing a good enough job about it to actually hold the Chinese back. At the same time, Iran is moving to become something close to a threshold state. So why...
What the hell does he mean by become a threshold state? First of all, I've never heard that term. And like I said, I follow this shit like you wouldn't believe. I know a lot of these military terms and stuff because I listen to these military people talk a lot. And I have never heard the term threshold state before. Let me just look that up, see what that means, if it's even a term. Nuclear, okay. So another term for threshold state is nuclear latency. Nuclear latency, or a nuclear threshold state, is a condition of a country possessing the technology to quickly build nuclear weapons without having actually yet done so. Okay, so actually, that's correct. He used it correctly, as a matter of fact. Fair enough. Does he think his audience that's listening right now would have any idea what he's talking about? I follow politics like a goddamn fucking hawk, and I didn't even know what he was talking about. Why would he think that anybody else does? Why would he even use that term? This dude is a joke.
Why are they taking victory? I think a lot of it is just the optics of going to a NATO summit. It's basically the symbolism, but actually we're on a really bad trajectory as far as I can tell.
Now, Victor,
none of that made any sense. Like, none of it. None of that made any sense at all. That guy was just talking completely out of his ass.
to Elbridge's point, you know, John Kerry, who I think has the most power of anyone in the administration, he's not saying.
Okay, I don't think so. John Kerry, I talked about this recently. He is an extremely intelligent person. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he is very good at his job. He is an extremely impressive person, John Kerry is. He's not going to run for president, but if he did, I would vote for his ass. He knows what he's doing, for real. He negotiated the Iran deal, which is impressive in its own right.
Victory. I think a lot of it is just the optics of going to a NATO summit. It's basically the symbolism, but actually we're on a really bad trajectory as far as I can tell.
Now, Victor, to Elbridge's point, you know, John Kerry, who I think has the most power of anyone in the administration, he's not Senate confirmed. He's heading to China to resume talks with the CCP. China's not sending anyone here. We're just going there hat in hand.
Okay, we're not going there hat in hand. We're just going to China to negotiate. And if we wanted somebody to go negotiate with China, we would want it to be John Kerry. That dude knows what he is doing. He knows how to negotiate. You think Donald Trump knows how to negotiate? He doesn't know shit. John Kerry has negotiated the toughest of negotiations with the toughest of world leaders. He knows what he's doing.
What of that? And what does this mean? I mean, I've been tweeting about this, saying this is really a slow but sure surrender by the United States to the donor class and to Wall Street.
What? John Kerry going to China to negotiate with them over something is the United States surrendering to China? What? What are you saying?
But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if you missed it, this guy is basically just a Republican think tank leader. That's what he does. That's his job. His title is Hudson Institution Senior Fellow or something. He's a right-wing Republican think tank leader. He sits around and thinks up the best propaganda methods to use for Republicans. That's it. So, that's his claim to fame. I guess that's why he's on the Ingraham angle or whatever the hell her show is called.
It is. We haven't built a coal plant in over a decade. China builds 1 or 2 a week. He's oblivious to that. For John Kerry, it's all.
Wait. I'm sorry. Let me step back. Listen to this one more time.
By the United States to the donor class and to Wall Street. But your thoughts on that?
It is. We haven't built a coal plant in over a decade. China builds 1 or 2 a week. He's oblivious to that.
Okay. I doubt that he is oblivious to that, first of all. Second, I don't know that that's even true. China has been doing everything that they can to deal with the climate crisis because they recognize that it's real, first of all. And second, of course we haven't built new coal plants. Why would we do that? Coal is not renewable. We build new solar farms. We build new wind farms. Why would we build coal farms or coal plants or whatever? That doesn't help anything at all. That makes it worse for us. The hell are you talking about right now? Does he think that building coal plants is better and more sustainable than building, I don't know, hell, nuclear plants even? Or, hell, I don't know, any of the others, wind farms or whatever? Does he think that coal farms are more sustainable than those? This guy has no idea what he's talking about, seemingly. None.
For John Kerry, it's all about concessions to our adversaries. He did the same thing with the Iran deal. He leveraged...
It's Iran. It's the Iran deal. And no, the Iran deal is actually a really, really good deal, and it's an embarrassment that the Republican Party spoke out against it so vehemently, because John Kerry put a lot of work into negotiating that, and I can't even believe that he got it done. The Iran deal was phenomenally good for the United States. Oh my God, it's exactly what we needed. And then the Republicans came and f***ed it all up, of course. That's what Republicans do best. They come in and they f*** everything up. Good job. That was Trump, actually, I think, that really f***ed it up. Thank you, Trump, for f***ing everything up for us. Another thing you f***ed up.
It is. We haven't built a coal plant in over a decade. China builds
good
1 or 2 a week.
I don't even know if that's true. And either way, that's bad for them.
He's oblivious to that. For John Kerry, it's all about concessions to our adversaries. He did the same thing with the Iran deal. He leveraged that deal by making us give concessions to the benefit of Iran. He did the same thing when he was Secretary of State with Russia vis-a-vis their presence in Syria. We got them back into the Middle East, and he's doing the same thing in China. It's always the...
This guy has seemingly no background knowledge about any of this. Like I said, I follow this shit closely, and I know exactly how all of this stuff played out. He just doesn't seem to have any clue what he's talking about right now. He's just spouting off random nonsense that is factless. I thought this guy's part of a think tank. Shouldn't he know all this information? What the hell is going on right now?
The United States gives concessions, and then John Kerry is the wizard who cements the deal to our disadvantage and to the benefit of our adversaries.
But it wasn't to our disadvantage. It was very much to our advantage. The Iran deal, which Kerry negotiated, I mean, I don't want to relitigate the Iran deal, but Iran was dealing with massive sanctions. They were, I think, the most sanctioned state, maybe second only to North Korea. And we had like billions and billions and billions of their dollars in our banks that we were refusing to release. That we were just holding on to for years because they were working toward nuclear weapons. They were trying to build nukes, and they were refusing to stop, basically. And John Kerry basically comes in and negotiates a deal and says, look, we'll release your money. We'll give you your money back. The money that belongs to your government that you had in our banks, and the money that belongs to like your oligarchs or whatever, if you agree to allow our inspectors in to make sure you are not building nuclear weapons. And the deal that he negotiated with Iran guaranteed that we would have known if Iran had started building nuclear weapons. There is no way they could have hidden it from us. The way that the deal was worked out. Impossible to hide it from us. And so they said, okay, they agreed. And we released their money, brought it to them in airplanes or whatever. And they set up the deal so that we were inspecting their stuff and everything, exactly as agreed upon originally. It was a fantastic deal. Trump comes into office and shreds the deal to pieces. And now Iran has their money, because guess what? We gave it to them already when we started the deal. And they're working toward a nuclear weapon. So not only did Trump destroy a really, really good deal, but he took all the leverage that we had originally away completely. Trump is one of the stupidest human beings alive. The only thing that he's good at is manipulating the press. That's it. And that's how he got where he is. Oh, and his dad putting a platinum spoon in his mouth since birth. Anyways, I digress. Let's keep listening to him talk shit about the Iran deal, which was objectively good.
Their presence in Syria, we've got them back into the Middle East, and he's doing the same thing in China. It's always the United States gives concessions, and then John Kerry is the wizard who cements the deal to our disadvantage and to the benefit of our adversaries.
The Iran deal is not to our disadvantage at all.
And I think he's probably,
one of the big problems with the Iran deal is that Iran wouldn't even come to the table. They're like, no, if we get a nuclear weapon, we hold all the cards anyways, so we're going to keep working toward a nuclear weapon. They would not even come to the table unless we agreed to come to the table without preconditions. Without saying, our deal was, we won't come to the table unless you agree that you're not going to build nukes. They said, we're not even going to talk to you unless you come with zero preconditions. It was almost an unwinnable situation. And John Kerry managed to, the Obama administration managed to get the Iran leadership, Rouhani and Khomeini, I believe, Rouhani's the president, Khomeini's the religious leader. Khomeini is really the leader of Iran, technically, even though Rouhani's the president. Anyway, the Obama administration finally managed to get Iran, Rouhani, to sit down and negotiate with the United States on this. Finally got him to agree, and they sent their best negotiator. The United States sent our best negotiator, John Kerry, and he did it. He got it done successfully. And then Trump comes into office and rips the deal up. Destroyed trust in any deal that's made by any United States official to the end of time. Destroys trust in the U.S. internationally. Destroyed the chance that maybe Iran won't make it to nuclear proliferation. No, they're definitely getting there now. They're working toward it now. They're almost there because of Donald Trump. This guy's talking shit about the Iran deal when it was Republicans and Donald Trump who f***ed it all up. It was their fault. It's their doing. When Iran gets a nuke and flies off the handle and one of their leaders is like, you know what? Why do I care if the world is here when I die anyways? And he's on his deathbed, and so he's like, fuck it, I'm going to hit the button anyway. When one of the Iranian leaders is a hateful nutcase, and he's like, I'm just going to hit the button because I'm dying. The last thing that I do as I die is I'm going to hit this nuclear button to kill everybody else, because if I'm not here, then the world shouldn't be here either. When that happens, we have Donald Trump to thank, among other shitheads that supported him. Anyways, let's keep listening to this moron who pretends to be like some kind of a think tank super genius.
Back into the Middle East, and he's doing the same thing in China. It's always the United States gives concessions, and then John Kerry is the wizard who cements the deal to our disadvantage and to the benefit of our adversaries.
He's an idiot.
And I think he's probably, one of the most naive Secretary of States we ever had, and now he's continuing that role as so-called climate czar, and it's to our disadvantage. That's very predictable.
No, John Kerry is a genius, actually. I have to say. He's extremely intelligent.
And Elbridge, you get the sense that when John Kerry talks about, we have to get used to this transition, and there's going to be capital deployed, and it's going to be great in this new era of green policies, you get the sense that a lot of these people are just setting up their next thing. They're meeting all these Chinese people. You get the sense that this is going to be a quick off-ramp to the next job for a lot of these individuals. And if China has the power, why not make the connection with China? I know that's a cynical thing for me to say, but
Well, it's a nonsensical thing for her to say. What the hell is she even talking about right now? I don't understand. Tabathog92, thank you so much. Appreciate the super chat. I watch something of yours every day, listen to your live streams while I'm working, love politics and religion, and I also love your mom. Oh, God. I didn't even see that one coming. That one was completely unexpected and out of the blue. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you like my mom. I like your mom, too, so... We're both mom lovers, apparently. Okay. Just not our own moms, or not in my case, anyway.
It certainly looks like it.
Well, and I think their ideology is often more transnationalist than it is about what's best for the United States. And I think it's not an accident that the Chinese invited Blinken, Yellen, and rightly, as you said, the optics are terrible, and I'm sure they'll be just as bad with John Kerry. And I think that's very disturbing about what we're, offering to the Chinese, which is allowing ourselves to be played in this way. And, of course, the ridiculous...
Wait, allowing ourselves to be played in what way? Like, what the hell are you talking about right now? You're making no sense whatsoever. They're acting as though we're like, we as in the United States, or honestly, we as in the left, have set out to, like, make America fail. Like, we want America to fail. Like, what the hell are you talking about right now, guys? It's just confusing garbage, all of it.
This whole competing while cooperating, or Yellen said healthy competition. I mean, this is not a game of tennis. That she said that this is not, the president doesn't see this as great power rivalry. It's
right. So Yellen, okay, I know what he's talking about. Again, this is the kind of thing that you really need to be inside their echo chamber to understand or be aware of. But basically, Janet Yellen is the, oh my God, what is she? The U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. Secretary of the Treasury, that's what it is. Okay. So Janet Yellen has basically been guiding the United States through the COVID recovery, which has been challenging. And I talked about John Kerry being a genius, for better or worse, whether you like the guy or not, whether he is part of the establishment or not, whatever, he's extremely intelligent. Janet Yellen is also extremely intelligent and knows exactly what she's doing. She is one of the best people for the job. And now, what they're just talking smack about her right now because she's a Democrat, or she's to the left of hunting the homeless for sport. Once again, they don't like anybody like that, apparently. But she has honestly been incredible. She's done a lot of very incredible things in recent years since, trying to recover from COVID and everything. Now, what was it they said exactly? Let me listen again.
Which is allowing ourselves to be played in this way. And, of course, the ridiculousness, this whole competing while cooperating, or Yellen said healthy competition. I mean, this is not a game of tennis.
Right, so I remember now. So Yellen basically said to China, we don't want to be at odds with you. We don't want to fight you for this or that or whatever. We want healthy competition between each other. We want the United States to have respect for China and for China to have respect for the U.S. Is basically what Yellen and Blinken said. They're trying to quell tensions between the U.S. and China because they're pretty high at this immediate moment, and that's an intelligent decision to make. Quell tensions, cool things down. We don't have to be at each other's throats, the U.S. and China. So what Yellen said was a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Leave it to Fox News to take somebody saying to China, look, we don't want to be at your throats. We want to work with you. We want to, for our mutual benefit. Leave it to Fox News to take that statement and turn it into something bad. Oh, they're trying to hurt America or some other nonsense. Wow, man. These people are shameless. They just lie shamelessly, don't they?
The president doesn't see this as great power rivalry. It's absolutely a great power rivalry, and you can be sure the Chinese see it that way. So even if we don't admit it, that's extremely disturbing.
Have they seen the trade deficit? Yeah. It's the largest trade deficit, and Victor, you've mentioned...
Yeah, I mean, the trade deficit doesn't matter. Of course, yeah, there can be a trade deficit sometimes. That's because China is the world's factory. but we are exporting different things other than physical goods. We are a service-based economy, so we're exporting technology, basically, around the world. All of the tech companies operate out of the U.S. Were started in the U.S. You know, YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they all were started here, and all of the money that they make cycles through the United States at the very least. That's how a lot of the money is kind of circulated and made in the United States. So, yeah, of course there's a trade deficit. We just do things differently. Like, what are you talking about?
I mentioned this before. It's the largest trade deficit we've had, I think, ever, consistently month to month to month with China.
Okay. Yeah, they're the world's factory. So what? What's your point?
China alone. So a healthy competition. It's a one-way competition, and China's winning.
Is she saying that the way that she measures success is how many handbags are produced in a country? Is that like what she's saying right now? It seems like that's what she's communicating. That is such a shallow, ridiculous, stupid, unintelligent, unknowledgeable interpretation of the situation. I don't even know what to do with it. That is a very stupid thing for her to have said. But here we are listening to her say it, sure enough.
Now, they call that cooperation, but it's more of the same we saw in Anchorage, Alaska. We saw it with the origins of COVID they were silent about. We saw it with the balloon fiasco. We see it with buzzing our ships and planes in the South China Sea. It's always concession, cooperation. The Chinese...
Dude, what are you talking about right now? This guy's supposed to be a think tank leader. And he doesn't appear to, like, understand anything, even the basics of the things that he's talking about. What? What the hell are you saying right now? This makes no sense. Let me step back, try to understand, honestly.
But it's more of the same we saw in Anchorage, Alaska. We saw it with the origins of COVID they were silent about. We saw it with the balloon fiasco.
Wait, what? Okay, so he says we saw it in Anchorage, Alaska? What? We saw it with the origins of COVID? Okay, I get it. He buys into the conspiracy theory that there was a lab leak. No evidence for that, by the way. We still have zero evidence, and that is not the official position of any government in the world, to my knowledge. So that's just false. And what was the other thing? So we've got Anchorage, Alaska? And the COVID lab leak conspiracy, and what?
We see it with buzzing our ships and planes in the South China Sea. It's all
buzzing our ships and planes in the South China Sea. What the are you talking about right now? You are making no sense at all. Buzzing our... What does that even mean? Buzzing our ships? I don't understand. What does that mean? Does anybody know what it means to buzz a ship? Is this like a military term I've never heard?
Always concession, cooperation. The Chinese don't see it that way. They see it that they're winning. And
wait, it's always concession, cooperation. The Chinese don't see it that way. Dude, I am so lost. You don't even understand how lost I am at what this guy is saying right now. Like I said, I follow politics for a living. I spend 60 hours a week neck deep in this shit, okay? And I don't understand what this guy's talking about right now. That should tell you something. This is supposed to be a public thing that's like a public show that is intended for boomers who don't follow politics as closely as I do. I don't think these people are saying anything of substance. I think that they're just trying to sound smart and complaining that the Chinese are getting one over on us and boomers are just going to accept it. Well, okay, so somebody says, yes, when a military plane overflies a military ship, it's called buzzing the ship. Okay, so I guess it was a military term I hadn't heard before. Interesting. Is that happening in the South China Sea? I don't remember hearing about that happening in the South China Sea. It's close flybys. China has been quite aggressive, sometimes dangerously so. Okay. I heard about this happening in. I heard about this happening with Russia with one of our drones. A Russian plane, a Russian pilot, flew so close to one of our drones that they took it down, basically, and they sprayed, like, gas on it and stuff, and it caused a huge mess. And it fell to the bottom of the ocean, and, we had to go retrieve it and everything. Yeah, I understand that this happens from time to time, I suppose. Like, what's the point of all this? He's saying that... What was he saying about China?
Or the origins of COVID they were silent about. We saw it with the balloon fiasco. We see it with buzzing our ships and planes in the...
Apparently, according to one of my chatters, again, you need to check this stuff because I don't know for sure. Check everything I say. Don't believe me as a source, blindly. You need to check everything, always. In fact, it's good practice to just check everything that you hear. Just double check it, even from, trusted sources. Reuters is a good source you can trust. But anyways, according to somebody in my chat here, it happened once that they know of, this whole buzzing our ships thing. And Russia does it. Yeah, I know of Russia doing it, like buzzing our ships and stuff. But apparently it's only happened once that anybody knows of, or that we know of, once that I know of, with China?
South China Sea. It's always concession, cooperation. The Chinese don't see it that way. They see it that they're winning. And Eldridge is right. They see it as a rivalry. And
Right. They do. They see it as a rivalry, absolutely. And that's bad. And that's why Yellen basically said to them, it doesn't need to be a rivalry. We can work together. We can get things done together, and it can be friendly competition. We don't have to, hate each other. We don't have to fight each other. We can help each other, work together, That's the point. That's what they were trying to do. But these people don't get it. They're just looking for a reason to hate China and Janet Yellen and Democrats generally. Simply Secular Dave, June 2019, they buzzed a CDN warship, HCMS Regina. I've actually been on that ship once, a family member in the CDN Navy. Oh, interesting. Okay. So, apparently, China did buzz a U.S. ship. Interesting. This is news to me. Well, if they're doing that, then that's bad. I mean, tensions are high with China. That's why Yellen and Blinken and the others were there in China in the first place, to quell tensions, to cool hot heads, make people friendlier again. But apparently that's a bad thing with these guys. Apparently we shouldn't be dealing with China at all. We should just make tensions even worse.